Welcome to the Awesemo Early Bird Podcast. I'm your old pal Emac coming to you with Saturday's NBA action with one Adam Ship My Money Share, as we are brought to you by Awesemo.com with the Early Bird Podcast, your first look, your foundational look at NBA Saturday. Adam, how are you doing? It sounds like you're off your sick bed.
Yeah, doing better. It's been getting progressively better throughout the day, so pretty excited about that. It's not a miserable experience doing podcasts and shows anymore.
There you go. Now all you got to do is have a couple beers after you finish your article for Saturday, and you'll be back on your sick bed.
Exactly. Going to the Wizards game Sunday, so I'm sure it'll start up again then.
There we go. So take it easy on Saturday. We, of course, are recording this on Friday night, so the 10 o'clock games had not yet tipped off. We've got a few teams on back-to-backs. There are 8 games. There's a 3:30 game and a 5:30 game. We're going to be skipping those, but we'll focus on the 6 games for the main slate. Amongst those teams, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves on a back-to-back. They are at a home and home. We have Chicago and Charlotte are both on back-to-back road games. Chicago started out on Wednesday in Portland. Friday night, they are taking on the Golden State Warriors. Saturday, they're going up to Salt Lake City to take on the Jazz. Tuesday, they're coming back to LA. They're going to play the Lakers. And then Thursday, they're heading on to Denver. So keep that in mind because they are going to be tuckered out sooner rather than later. And then Charlotte just started their road trip. Let's see, they played here against Denver on Saturday. They played in LA against the Clippers on Tuesday. They played in Portland on Friday night. Saturday, they are going from Portland to Sacramento. And then on Monday, they will be in San Antonio. So once again, keep in mind, if you think Kemba's looking a little slow now, just wait for the next couple games. We'll kind of hit injuries as we go on throughout the positions here. The notable ones, of course, are Ricky Rubio is going to be out for a few weeks. Raul Neto is going to be out. Dante Exum is going to be out. We'll have to see what their rotation looks like after Friday to see who is going to be the point guard, and they can't really call up Grayson Allen from the G League because he's dealing with an ankle injury. Devin Booker, doubtful with a back issue, so we'll get more news on that when we come to him. Gary Harris and Will Barton are both questionable. Now, Barton got an upgrade, and Harris is kind of status quo. We'll have to see what happens with them. Eton Moore is still questionable with his injury. Rudy Gay is no timetable to return. Robert Covington. We were talking Rodney Hood pre-show, so I was stuck on that. But Robert Covington still going to be out with an ankle bruise. Bruised his bone, a deep bone bruise, I guess is what they're calling it. He has no foreseeable return date, so that's a little bit troublesome. Let me see here. I think those are most of the main ones. If we come across anything else, of course, we will talk about it when we are going position by position here. Let's see. As I look at center, last two, Cody Zeller and Mo Bamba are both definitely going to be out. Adam, we've got point guard here. We've got a Russell Westbrook going against Oklahoma City. He set a career high on Thursday night in that double overtime game. He had a career high 24 assists. So he had 24 points, 24 assists, 13 rebounds. I believe there have only been 3 people that have scored more than 20 points and had 24 or more assists in a game. I believe one was Isaiah Thomas. I do not remember the other from the article. And no, it is not the University of Washington Isaiah Thomas. It is the original Isaiah Thomas from the Detroit Pistons. Do you think these Spurs and OKC guys are going to be tired, or are they going to be ready to do battle again? Because there were some serious minutes in that game. What do you got here for Westbrook? And was that a bit of a coming out party, I guess, in 45 minutes for Derek White, or 48 minutes? Goodness gracious. Do you think they have any legs under them?
I mean, I think they should be good now. They got a full day off. Obviously, played huge minutes, but I would expect them to be fine. I'm not really taking anything away from that game. Obviously, it went to double overtime, and so you can't be too enamored with what happened. Obviously, it was an insanely good stat line from Westbrook, but still going to treat it just like I did going into that game, where I think that Westbrook's matchup proof. I think he's always a perfectly fine play, but on a slate with Anthony Davis, he's not going to be my priority as, the number one expensive guy, because San Antonio is a good team defensively. It is a pace down game for Oklahoma City, and Westbrook does still have legitimate concerns playing alongside Paul George with how well Paul George is playing.
All right, I'm trying to think back. Once upon a time, and I know they had a double overtime game this year. That would be the Knicks and the Bulls. I want to say, I think like in 2000, Google is not helping me because it's only showing up for this year. But I think they had one. I want to say it was like 2015. They had a double overtime game, and then they went and played. They had a home and home on back-to-back nights. The second game was not that enticing. So our guys here with the Spurs and with the Thunder do have 48 hours of rest. So we will see what happens. They're looking kind of in the mid-tier here. One of the concerning things has been De'Aaron Fox's minutes. They have been 24, 31, 22, 31, 29 in his last few games. That's down from him averaging in the 35 to 36 minutes per game range. Do you think that is just a function of them giving him a little bit of a break, because the last three was set up as a 3 and 4, and then it was a 4 and 6? Are you worried about that? He's had a couple days off now. Do you think he'll be back and going against a tired Charlotte team, or is this what we should expect going forward, something in the 26 to 28 minute range?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely concerning because several of those games were competitive games too. I'm not really sure exactly what to make of it. For now, I'm just projecting him for around 31 or 32 minutes. And, if he gets more, he gets more. But I have lowered my baseline projection for him until we see him get back to playing 34 or 36 minutes. With Yogi Ferrell seemingly being back in the rotation now, even, with him on Shumpert back, it's not making me feel any better about Fox. Like, Bogdan Bogdanovic's minutes are not going anywhere. If Farrell's going to eat up a bunch of minutes, then there's only so many minutes to go around. And, it makes sense that Fox is losing a few. So for now, I'm just going to have to adjust my baselines on him and put him, at 31 or 32 minutes.
All right. Speaking of adjusting baselines, here's the question. DeAnthony Melton. He has put up some very solid games. He's checking in at 4,800 on DraftKings. Favorable price point. He is going to go against Denver. Both teams are coming off a day of rest here. How are you feeling about Melton in not exactly the easiest matchup, but he's pretty much the only ball handler in town there for the Suns?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to trust him entirely. Like, we don't really know exactly what's going on with Elie Okobo in that rotation. He stole minutes from him in the first game without Booker, then he didn't in the next game. Melton fouled out though. But yeah, I mean, Melton is clearly at least getting the number one opportunity here for Phoenix. He's not afraid to shoot the ball. He should play at least 28 minutes, and the price tag hasn't gotten too high yet. It's not a great matchup against Denver. That's certainly worth keeping in mind, but not a ton of value sticking out, at least as of right now. So certainly in play.
All right. One guy I have, last guy at the position, and judging from his price, which of course on DraftKings is influenced by ownership, Patty Mills, 3,800 the last three games. And we're just going to include the double overtime game because it wasn't an egregious set of minutes. He had played 29 in it, but he's played 29, 31, 26, 24. And he's averaged in the mid-20s for DraftKings points. 3,800, he's definitely going to be in my player pool, particularly since White played 48 minutes. So perhaps we see Mills pick up a little bit of the slack there. What do you got with Mills or anybody else?
I don't mind Bryn Forbes. He's been playing 30-plus minutes. He's not very good, but neither is Patty Mills, neither is Bellinelli. It's kind of just a rotating cast of cheap Spurs guys. Forbes, I think at 4,400 on DraftKings is very reasonably priced given the lack of other appealing options down there. I think I'd rather get the Forbes than Mills, though.
All right. Moving on to the two guard here. Of course, Booker is at top. He probably will be out. We should have news for that. He's been dealing with the sore back spasms. Donovan Mitchell coming in on a back-to-back. He'll be getting Chicago. That's an intriguing matchup. DeRozan coming off that double overtime game. He's in OKC. What about Jrue Holiday? We've got a bunch of people healthy now. Nikolai Mirotic came back off the bench. He's going to play about 20 minutes for the next couple games as he overcomes his ankle injury. We know that Elfrid Payton is back. How do you like Jrue now that he's at 7,800? Not really much of a price decrease for that many bodies coming back, but it's about 500, 600, 700 below what we've been seeing over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it puts him probably about where he should be. He's not overpriced anymore, so I imagine that I'll start getting him in more lineups now, as opposed to having essentially none of him before that. But on this slate, it's still a pretty deep position because you have Donovan Mitchell playing again without any of the point guards on that team. You have DeMar DeRozan, who's not that much more expensive in a pace-up matchup against Oklahoma City. So it's still tough to make Holiday a priority, but I certainly think the price tag's gotten to a point where he's not overpriced anymore.
Now, we could see a little bit of potential minutes limits or even value. We've got Derrick Rose and Zach LaVine coming in on back-to-backs here. They're coming off their respective ankle injuries. They, of course, are playing Friday night. We don't know what's going on with their overall minutes because that game is going on still. So something definitely to keep an eye on there. How are you feeling about one Jamal Murray? I kind of always think of him more as a shooting guard, even though he is the point guard for Denver. Well, arguably he's the point guard, but assuming one of Gary Harris or Will Barton plays, is Murray a little too expensive at 7,400?
If they're back, I think it's just like a completely correct price on him. If Harris is still out, then I'm more interested because I think that maybe you see a couple more minutes for him, you see more usage. But if Harris is back, then I definitely lose some of my interest in Jamal Murray. It's still a great matchup, though.
All right. Would you consider the old dead cat bounce, if you will? One Evan Fournier played 37 minutes in his last game, 0 for 8 from the field, 0 for 4 from downtown. He made a free throw and missed one, and he had a steal along with 4 personal fouls. 2.5 fantasy points from Evan Fournier in 37 minutes, Adam. He's got to get better than that, right? Tougher matchup against Boston, but is he someone you would consider at 4,700?
Yeah, I mean, you would think that he turns it around. I mean, it's still Evan Fournier. You're still looking at 32 minutes in most games. That's one of the cheapest price tags I can ever remember seeing on Fournier. So even though the matchup's really bad, I think that the price tags kind of hit rock bottom on him. So I don't mind taking a chance, especially if you're going to have people looking to Kelly Oubre at the same price point. Bryn Forbes isn't any better than Evan Fournier. So I have no issue if I need a cheap shooting guard, just hoping that Fournier turns it around.
Let's talk about Oubre. Do you think he's completely dependent on having Booker out of the lineup for him to kind of, shall we say, get his?
For the minutes, yeah. I think that Oubre coming off the bench, the usage will be there regardless, but Booker being out helps Oubre to get more minutes because it opens all the minutes up for Josh Jackson in place of Booker, which in turn gives more minutes to Kelly Oubre. Once Booker comes back, I think you'll see Oubre's minutes become much less consistent.
All right. How about that Terrence Ferguson? I was talking to somebody in chat and I said, oh, good God, you cannot play Terrence Ferguson. He had a lucky game his last one out. That was against Minnesota. He was 4 for 4 from three-point range. He came out and, as one Dave Loughran likes to say, did me dirty. 7 of 12 from the field. All his makes were three-pointers, Adam. I don't know that I really want to go there, but it is 3,600. Potential placeholder, or are we playing with fire?
No, I mean, it's still Terrence Ferguson. He's still playing with Paul George and Russell Westbrook. Just because he's had 2 good games in a row making a bunch of threes doesn't mean that he's suddenly a different player. It's still Terrence Ferguson. I see no reason to ever roster Terrence Ferguson.
All right, well, we'll go back to calling him Turd Ferguson. But in the meantime, he did look pretty darn good and got that game into the overtime. So got to give him some props there. What do you got here for us at small forward? Up at the top, of course, we have Paul George, DeMar DeRozan. Wait for it. They were in that double overtime game. You've got Andrew Wiggins coming in on a back-to-back. Ooh, wait, TJ Warren, 6,800. A Buddy Hield, 6,500. Those guys are the ones I'm going to look towards. If you had to choose between one of those two, Warren and Hield, where would you go knowing that Hield is going to be playing Charlotte, who is on a back-to-back?
I would lean toward Hield. I just think it's a better matchup. The price tags come down a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's really close, but I would lean toward Buddy Hield.
All right. Has the Cinderella clock ticked midnight yet for Josh Jackson of the Phoenix Suns 3 straight games where he's topped 30 DraftKings points. His price is goosed up to 5,600. Not horrible, but we need him to make his shots and wait for it, take some shots, because here's a guy that is it's not uncommon to see him get single-digit shots or even a handful of shots, particularly when he's playing 22 minutes or less. I mean, we've got too many games with 4 and 6 shot attempts, but his last 3, 13, 11, 13, he's been hitting them. That's kind of a tough act to follow because he's not the world's greatest shooter, coming in with the 41% shooting percentage. And in those 3 games, he is shooting, let's see, about 60%. Thoughts on Jackson as we look at small forwards?
I still think he's fine, but it's not a good matchup against Denver. And just looking at the DraftKings pricing, I think there's a nice pivot opportunity with Jeremy Lamb going against Sacramento. You know, obviously the second game of a back-to-back, but you have Josh Jackson on DraftKings at 5,600, Jeremy Lamb at 5,500. You should get very similar minutes from the two of them, and Jeremy Lamb has the much more appealing matchup going against a faster-paced Kings team that's not as good defensively as Denver. So if people are going to keep playing Josh Jackson, I think that gives us a really nice pivot spot.
All right. I'm looking here to see because I have visions. Oh, I was correct. Interesting. Kyle Korver. We're going to have a little timeout for some fun here. He has played for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams. Can you name at least 4 of them?
Hawks, Jazz, Bulls, Cavs, and Orlando?
No. He spent the first 5 years of his career with Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah.
Philadelphia. I had forgotten that myself. He is, of course, in his 15th season. I do remember him from Creighton way back in the day. But let me see here. He's 37. Goodness. Wow. That's all I got. Wow. Food for thought there. Of course, jump shooter going on a back-to-back. We may not want to do that, but how many bodies are left for Utah? You may end up with him if you're running 150 lineups. He is just $4,000 shooting guard and small forward eligible. Again, we are on a 6-game player pool here, so your mileage may vary, but it seems like there's a lot of mixing and matching to go on in this 4,000 to 5,700 range at shooting guard and small forward and power forward, because amongst other names, we don't have to go over them, but we've got Tatum's, Jason Tatum's in there, Marcus Morris, Nemanja Bjelica. You've got Marvin Williams, who's on a back-to-back. Nick Batum, he's coming in on a back-to-back. Jay Crowder coming in on a back-to-back. But there's a lot of people in there that maybe we get some other injury news. Maybe because those teams are on a back-to-back, somebody gets dinged up. We'll have to see what happens there. Moving on to power forward here. The crown jewel, probably, of the slate, Anthony Davis. You haven't had a chance to talk about Anthony Davis for a while when we've been doing shows together. Talk about him.
Yeah, it has been a while. Now you get a great matchup for him against Minnesota. The Timberwolves looking to play faster under interim coach Ryan Saunders. You have Karl Anthony Towns and Taj Gibson, who should struggle to slow down Davis, and obviously just a really great player, the highest upside guy on the slate. I think more so than Westbrook. There's really nothing negative I can say about Davis. So I expect that he will, assuming enough value opens up throughout the day. It's a weekend, so normally it does. Assuming enough value opens up, I imagine Davis will be certainly a priority for me.
All right. Ooh. Time out, because you said the magic word of value. Speaking of value, if you use the promo code EARLYBIRD, you can get 50% off of any 1-month package at Osmo.com. Go to Osmo.com. In the upper right, click on the join button. Select any month-long package. Use the promo code EARLYBIRD, all one word, and you will get 1 month for half price. That's a sweet deal to come on in. We've got golf starting up. We have golf projections. It's early. It's early. There's still 2 days left in the tournament, but there's some people getting antsy with some screenshots here on Yahoo, which was running a nice overlay tournament. So we've got projections for Yahoo, FanDuel, DraftKings, Fantasy Draft, etc. And then we've got all the other sports covered too. You got NHL projections. You get NBA, NFL as we wind that down. You get the Osmo rankings, Alex Baker's personal letter grade rankings for the showdown slates, for football, for the main slates and short slates for NBA. Pretty good deal there. You get Fast Eddie Fear's personal grade rankings for DraftKings. it's a good time. Duck on in here behind the paywall. Use the promo code EARLYBIRD, 50% off any 1-month package. Slack is included. And if you choose the Fantasy Cruncher add-on package, that also is included in any of the half-price deals. Adam, moving down here for the rest of our power forwards here. How are you feeling about Mirotić and Julius Randle? Is that going to become a bit of an issue here? Randle's in at 7,300. I'm more concerned about him if he's a worthwhile play going against Minnesota, because Mirotić, they've said, will probably be playing 20 to 25 minutes at least for the next week or so.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it certainly takes some shine off of Randle. The fact that Okafor played in their last game doesn't make me feel good either. I was hoping that we would see Randle, or that we would basically see Mirotić take Okafor's minutes with Randle playing more time behind, staggered with Anthony Davis, but that isn't what happened. So I think that it's certainly concerning, and as we move forward and Mirotić starts to trend up, it should take minutes away from Randle to where we were seeing at the beginning of the season.
Every time I hear Okafor in New Orleans, it reminds me of Emeka Okafor.
Yeah.
For New Orleans, not Jahlil Okafor. So good times there. And I can say the only team that has had 2 Okafors play for them in the NBA would be the Pellies. Let me see. Actually, he was there when they were the Charlotte Hornets too. Emeka Okafor was.
Yeah, he was drafted by the Bobcats.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right, out of Connecticut. And then he had a minute there with Washington, if you remember, probably, good God, like 5 or 6 years ago. I'd been out here a couple years, and all of a sudden he came in and he was their starting center, or forward, or good God, that was a mess of a team back then. But then he took 4 years off, came back to the NBA and played for a season there. Had a hot cup of coffee, played in 26 games, it looks like, for the Pellies. Not too shabby. Not too shabby. All right. Down towards the bargains, we've got Lauri Markkanen, nicely priced, slower matchup here going against Utah. We've got both of those teams on a back-to-back. You've got Gordon Hayward, has not been quite as good now that we have Kyrie Irving back. And then we've got Jeremy Grant, who posted a phenomenal 25 and 12. Now, granted, that was the double overtime, but he has been someone they've really been counting on for a lot of minutes here from OKC. Any of those guys pop at your first look?
I think Grant's interesting. They were actually playing him in the game against San Antonio. They played him a lot of minutes without Steven Adams, and I wasn't sure if San Antonio or if OKC would run Patrick Patterson as the backup center, but Grant was getting his minutes staggered as well. So I think that the minutes with the second unit probably do him well. Obviously playing big minutes too. So I think that as long as Nerlens Noel is sidelined, it makes Grant project a little bit better.
All right. Here's some news on Steven Adams that I just saw. It says he hurt his ankle in the fourth quarter and went to the locker room, did not return. Of course, he didn't come back for that double overtime, but he's listed as questionable. If he's out, goodness, they're going to be down some bodies. I don't know who else they have. They may have to call somebody up from the G League or sign somebody to a 10-day contract just to get some bodies in there. But rounding out our power forwards here, going down, scrolling, there he is. Talk to me about Marvin Bagley and Nemanja Bjelica.
With Bagley back, it just makes it really tough to roster either of them. Bagley not playing enough minutes yet to really be in consideration, and then taking minutes away from Bjelica. So I'm not really interested in either one.
All right. Any of the others we're going to look for. We have the 11 o'clock Saturday DFS strategy show. Adam and I will be taking a leisurely walk game by game through all 6 games. We'll do it in about an hour and a half, so you're going to get everything that you need there. But check us out over there on the YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you can be notified anytime that a Awesemo show is starting, because, goodness, we have a ton of them. Also in the can, we have On the Contrary, so that's available right now. That is with Evan Silva, with Alex Baker, Awesemo himself, and Chris Baggs breaking down the divisional playoff weekend. So that's a good one. And then you have the betting show, the Osmo Odds show with Ben Raza, breaking down some college basketball for Saturday. They went through the 5 key matchups that are being played on Saturday. And then they also did some prop bets for the NFL contests as well. So check that out. Those are both available on demand on the YouTube channel. Moving over here to center, Adam, Nikolai Jokic. We got a little nervous in the last game. He had 2 quick fouls. It looked like Plumlee was going to take the team and run away with the game. And then the Clippers clawed their way back when Jokic was out. In 28 minutes, Adam, he had 58 DraftKings points. That is amazing. How do you like him against, at 10,800, how do you like him against the Phoenix Suns? He's played them twice this year, averaging 34 minutes per contest and 66 DraftKings points.
To be fair, he scored 82 or something in one of those 2 games. But, yeah, I mean, obviously a great matchup here against Phoenix. The issue is really just the price tag and the position. You know, we talk a lot about how much opportunity cost there is to paying up at center. And then on this slate, obviously, if you pay up for Jokic, it makes it harder to get the Anthony Davis, especially on a 6-game slate where we're probably not going to have crazy value like we did on Friday night. So it just gets tough to prioritize Jokic. Not that I dislike the matchup or Jokic or anything. Like, I think he goes out there and scores, 55, 60 fantasy points quite frequently. It's just, are your lineups better with him, or, going to like the mid-range at center and then being able to afford Anthony Davis? And I think that's, really what it'll come down to.
All right. At the bottom of the bargain bin here, we're not going to mess around with Pau Gasol or Jakob Poeltl at this point, are we, with both of them playing?
Probably not. If Gasol started again at 3,100, I'd be fine having him in some lineups. Like, he played 20 minutes against Memphis and then 16 minutes on a back-to-back. If he starts again, I don't think it would be crazy to get, 20 minutes or something like that. So at 3,100 on DraftKings, I don't think that would be that crazy, but, still clearly keep your expectations in check.
All right. Last guy we're going to talk about, another guy you and I covered a little bit pre-show, looking at him from a rest of the season standpoint, but that would be one DeAndre Ayton. Of course, your mileage may vary. He had a little bit of foul trouble there against DeAndre Jordan. That should not be a surprise, but he only played 20 minutes. Outside of that, he had been approaching 30 to 34 minutes in, pretty much every game prior to that in his last 9. Those are pretty solid minutes. He is producing about 1.2 fantasy points per minute. It's not all living and dying on the blocks, which is amazing, because in that 10-game stretch, he only has 10 blocks. So what do you got here for the youngster and the crown jewel of the Phoenix Suns organization?
It's a scary matchup from the foul trouble perspective, but I think the price tag is cheap enough for his upside. If he can stay out of foul trouble here, you should get 32, 34 minutes from him. And we know how productive he's been lately. He's really, over the last month or so, really stepped things up. So I don't mind, especially in tournaments. I think there's certainly risk there. But in tournaments, you can take a chance because the upside's so high for his price point.
And just throwing it out there, of course, there is no guarantee of past performance becoming future performance. But in his 2 meetings against Denver, he did play 31 minutes on average, did not get any blocks, but averaged 2 steals in those games and 38 DraftKings points with 3.5 fouls in those games. So if he can keep his hands to himself, we do have a good chance for him to get into the mid-30s or even grace the 40 fantasy point plateau. Anything else here at the pivot position?
I think Rudy Gobert against Chicago is interesting too. You should see a little bit more of a facilitator role from Gobert because of the lack of point guards on Utah. But, also he's just been incredibly good recently, averaging between 1.25 and 1.3 fantasy points per minute over the last month plus. It's a matchup against Wendell Carter and Bobby Portis that I don't think is very concerning for Gobert. So I think that, if you can find the money to get up from DeAndre Ayton to Gobert in the mid-range, he's another good play.
Excellent. All right, well, we're going to leave it at that. One thing, if you're listening to this right now, go register for the Yahoo Rake-Free NFL contest. There are, as of Friday night, 2,500 spots left. That is going to fill. It's half the size of what it was last weekend when it only got to be about 83% full. They ran a $500,000 contest. On this weekend's for the divisional matchups, they're running a $250,000 contest, $20 per entry, no rake. So they're running it rake free, bringing in whatever they get up to $250,000, and they are paying out $250,000. There's a free article on the Osmo.com homepage that covers that. We also have free single game slate articles for the Saturday night game between the Dallas Cowboys and the Los Angeles Rams, and then the Sunday night game for the Philadelphia Eagles and Big Dick Nick, seeing if the magic can continue as he heads down to avenge Carson Wentz's 3 interceptions and that earlier season loss to the New Orleans Saints. Definitely check that out, and check us out 11 a.m. Saturday morning on the Osmo YouTube channel for the DFS Strategy Show. You could follow Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS. I am at EMACDFS, and it is Osmo_COM over on the Twitter machine. With that, gamers, good luck.